Good morning, world. Another beautiful day in paradise, raining here. I'm giving you the weather report. This is Black Crow Walking and Karen Morley tuning in to you from Phillip Island and New South Wales with A Course of Love. And we're up to reading the introduction of this book, verse 8. And today we're going to just read it and pull it apart. This course will seem remedial to some, easy to some, complex to some. The mind may say, yes, yes, I know. Tell me something I don't know. The mind may reel at contradictions, cling to known truths, compare this wisdom to other wisdom. The mind will attempt to understand with its own logic and fight the logic of the heart. The mind will seek new rules and perhaps will be willing to rearrange its own reality once again. Karen?
The mind is its own reality. You cannot escape the mind's reality with the mind. You cannot learn how to escape the reality of the mind with the mind's pattern of learning or of logic. You cannot live in a new and fresh world and retain the mind's reality.
Okay, we'll see how we go. This course will seem remedial to some, easy to some, complex to some. Karen and I have just been reading The Course in Miracles, and there have been many days when it's been way too much for me, and my mind has gone into overload and hasn't wanted to continue. And with this course, it seems a whole lot more simpler to me, easy to read, and but just by taking the 2 verses each day, I found it easy, but also easier to understand. And who wrote The Course in Miracles? Do you remember? Was it a man or a woman?
No, a woman. It was a woman.
Okay.
Yeah. And she was a psychologist, a professor.
Okay. Yep. So do you find it easy to read, or?
No. No.
Well, what about this one?
Oh, I love this one. I got into it and just resonated with its words, and the simplicity was something. Yeah, the simplicity was something else. It's not saying that's easy, but to know that it is simple to to get, that put a whole different frame for me in learning, and maybe not even learning, in just absorbing and getting to comprehend and understand.
Because we're not here to learn, are we?
No, I caught myself there with the learning. I thought, no,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
the
want to learn
language.
anymore.
The language is so ingrained in us, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the brain actually wants us to learn. It wants us to put it into a rule category and a learning category. Um, and then we find ourselves saying, yes, yes, I know. Tell me something I don't know. But do we really know anything? That's what I would like to know. I want to know. I want to know. Do we really know anything? Can we really say that this is the total truth and it's never going to be any different? I don't think so, because the earth and the planet, well, the planet and the creation of everything is always in motion and change. And our thoughts, our not our thoughts, our being needs to be in constant motion and change to keep up with the universe. Because if we don't, we get in a rut and we get crushed. Um, Anything that's not in alignment with the cosmic consciousness gets crushed. And I don't know about you, Karen, but I've been crushed 3 times in this life, and it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling at all. So I'm open now and truly willing to go with the flow and let my truths change. So, what's true for me right now may not be true for me in 3 minutes' time after I've read these verses. Yeah. So, how do you feel about that, Karen?
Yep, I definitely have been crushed a number of times in life, and I suppose looking back to now, I can look at it and go, sit with it, just sit with it, and it's like you're in a storm on a boat, and you just go with it. You've got to pull down your sail, and just sit with it and let it ride it out. And the thing is that I have with this, I have felt more at peace as soon as I find the turmoil coming up within me and they're trying to work out, they're trying to think, they're trying to know, it's like letting go and going, coming back to that space of the heart, where that heart is. And that to me gives me peace. I don't have to know anything, but it just gives a sense of peace. And what I need to know will come to me.
Excellent. I'm trying not to breathe into the microphone. All right. So, the mind may reel at contradictions. Sometimes when someone reels at something, there's a physical expression of that. It's like their head goes back and what do you mean? That reeling, that whole reeling process creates resistance. It speaks resistance really. And when one is in resistance, everything shuts down. The mind just says, nah, not taking that, not doing that. So possibly in the process of allowing the surrender to what we're experiencing now rather than from the mind being in the heart and tapping into your own knowing. When we notice that reeling within us, just stop. Just stop and move into being open enough to ask that question, how can I see this differently? Show me the knowing inside me that can connect with this information, and letting the different ideas that this book presents that bypass the mind, letting them bypass the mind and coming fully into your heart and just sitting with it in stillness and silence, and allowing it to show you, to teach you, to be your mentor into a new reality, a new pathway of being in the body's intelligence. And I was reading Patricia's comment this morning, about 10 minutes ago actually, where she was saying that every single cell in our body has vast intelligence. And does it also have a heart? So this is following on yesterday's, Karen, where we discussed, the fact that our mind might even have a heart. That for me was mind-boggling, and it still boggles me. But when she threw in every cell might have a heart, that just kind of went, I did that reeling thing. Whoa, that's new information. How do we bring that? How do we bring that into daily life? But for me, it's been a process of I've known that. I know that. I know every single cell is born. It has it has a lifespan. It runs around the body doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It can get diseased. It can get dehydrated. Before it dies, it reproduces another cell, so it gives birth, and then it passes on its information to that cell. So it educates, and then it dies. But it doesn't die in terms of, well, it dies, but it doesn't disappear. It becomes what's called a ghost cell. And when you look at the blood through a microscope, you can see that cell very slowly fading, and it might take a month to fade. But so when you look at the blood cells, you can see these kind of ghost cells behind them and around them, and that's the dead cells slowly disappearing. So for me, what if that cell was a universe unto itself, and within that cell there was a whole pile of things living and thinking that the cell is the universe, and the cell is feeding wisdom and heart. How good would that be? What a wonderful thought is that? Thanks, Patricia. You took me on a tangent. I love it. What do you reckon, Karen?
Uh, I think being guided by all those cells would be awesome. They'd have the general knowing. They'd have the knowledge. They'd have, without the thoughts going on, they'd have the knowing.
Well, we're not getting very far, are we? But that was fun. All right.
Like the tangent.
I like the tangent. Yeah, I'll have a little rave like Esther Hicks does. All right. The mind may reel at contradiction, cling to known truths, compare this wisdom with other wisdom. How often do we have a discussion where we bring in so many different aspects from so many different places, like Christianity and Buddhism, and the Buddhists say, the Christians say, the Hindus say, science says, and the mind tries to feed what it already knows from other things to frame it in a place where it can accept what's being said, or come into its own little box that says, and that's already labelled, that says, well, this is the truth, So that's one of the games of the mind, to try and understand and manipulate the situation into a framework where it can accept it. The mind will attempt to understand with its own logic and fight the logic of the heart. The mind will seek new rules and perhaps be willing to rearrange its reality once again. Oh gosh, that mind's busy, isn't it? It's interesting to just sit and listen and watch the mind when it's going, I need to know, I need to know, I need to learn. And just be amused at yourself uh, and the fantastic control the mind loves to have.
I think it likes to take us on an adventure, and we choose to either go on that path of adventure or we stay still and just watch it bemused and come back. Yeah. Come back to the heart, come back to centre.
So would you like to pull the next bit apart, Karen?
The mind will seek new rules. Oh no, you've said that, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The mind is its own reality. You cannot escape the mind's reality with the mind. How true. Oh my goodness. Yeah. The mind will just defend itself. And this is how it is. It needs that certainty. This is how it is. And you can't use that mind. And I think that's so important to understand. I think I've wanted the mind to understand what's going on and to give me that truth, and it can't. It just can't. It comes from a totally different place where it's constructed all of this fabrication it has constructed. So how can it actually give me the truth if it's coming from its own construction? I don't know. So for me, it's like, whoa, that's major, because we're taught in schools, we've got to logically figure things out. We've got to dissect. We've got to use the mind. I used to really, really not like English literature and having to dissect something in that way. And I didn't understand why. But now I can understand that it serves no purpose. It's doing, it's just playing with itself.
Yes, I agree. And so, did you know agreeing and disagreeing is a superior attitude? So I'm creating this space to hear that. A much better place to be. All right. So, what came up for me when you were speaking then, Karen, was that we are living in an illusion every day, and that illusion has limited information because it only has the information that we've been able to absorb. Um, that's why we have Dr. Google because we don't know. And I think if we could approach everything from a point of view of we don't know, I don't know, and do I need to know, and how do I need to know? So coming back to the how do I need to know? I need to let go of what I don't know, what I do know, and what I don't know, the urgent need to know, and come deeply into feeling into and letting ourselves be guided. Because the the egoic mind attaches to knowing. It attaches to knowing from an intellectual point of view, whereas in actual fact we're asking it to just rest, to just stop, to just be. And that brings us back around to the seat of observation, which is the most powerful place to sit, because that's where God, supreme consciousness, guidance of divinity sits. And from that seat of observation comes that cellular knowing, that beautiful aha moment that allows us, our whole being, to be involved in the knowing rather than the egoic mind ruling us tyrannically, and saying this is what's right or wrong, good or bad. Thank you.
Okay, you cannot unlearn how to escape the reality of the mind with the mind's pattern of learning or of logic.
Can you just read that a little louder, Karen?
Yeah. You cannot learn how to escape the reality of the mind with the mind's pattern of learning or of logic. And I think that's the thing, we've been taught to have a logical mind. It follows this certain pattern, and if you don't follow that pattern that you've been taught, you're in strife to live in this world. And I must admit, it's not serving me any. It is not serving me any, that pattern of logic, or the learning too. The times that have been really enriching to me are the times where I've stopped. I haven't been overwhelmed. Well, when I've been overwhelmed with all the information, all the knowledge, all um, the striving, all of this. When I stop the overwhelm, I just stop and I sit. And to me, that's the most precious time, so much more precious than all the learning. And it's that real stillness and that being. I love the word being. So just being and allowing. So in that being, it's allowing and allowing wisdoms, knowledge, not in the knowledge that we think of having something that we could be examined on, but the knowledge of being in this planet, on this earth, in this body, and being in connection with nature, being in connection with other people, just being in connection with other creatures. That to me has such a warm, rich feeling that arises within all of the body, and it touches every cell. So instead of that nervous anxiety of, do I know enough? Do I know enough? I'm searching. It brings me back. It brings me back to just being.
Mm.
Oh my goodness, that's so much easier and richer.
And speaking of easier and richer, people think that it's hard to love, but it's actually easier to love than it is to hate. It's easier to be calm and peaceful than it is to be stressed and anxiety. It's easier on the body, it's easier on the mind, it's easier on the whole body system. And it's, why do we seek? Why do we go seeking the hard way to do things? Yeah.
Mm, mm. You cannot live in a new and fresh world and retain the mind's reality. Oh, I love that. I love that. I can discard all of what I've learnt, all of that, what I think I know, and I can just let it go. I don't have to sit in that place. As you say, Crow, you can observe it and see it passing by like a cloud. Oh, that's interesting, and see, or a leaf floating by on a river. But yeah, you don't need that. You don't need that to live anew. You can let it go. Let it go. And I love that phrase, let go and let God. So I just letting it go.
And how good would it be if our consciousness would allow us to see every moment as a new moment and be totally here present in the newness of everything? To be able to see things from a new perspective consciously. And I think for me, that would bring me back into the delight of the child when it's discovering its own feet and its own hands, and it's discovering the world and animals and the colours and just to walk in that consciousness is delicious. Let's do that today.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, yeah. And let's not talk about it as if it's too hard. Because the mind wants us to think it's hard to do that. But we were born knowing how to do that. We were born with the wonder of the world, the ecstasy of everything being delicious to look at, and experience. Life is an experience that is delicious when we come into the truth of who we are and the consciousness of calmness and peace and joy and fun and play and adventure. And that's what I'm going to bring into my day today. Thank you, Karen. That was awesome.
Thank you, Karen.
And I'm thoroughly enjoying our sessions together. It's been lovely connecting with you in Phillip Island and enjoying the the deliciousness of this new book and the adventure we're having together. So I'm just going to turn the recording off and say bye for now, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.